Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss strategies for overcoming imposter syndrome with Jennie Lowe, licensed clinical social worker from the Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health, who's joining us to help us honor Mental Health Awareness Month, which is this month in May. My name is Elise Bortolato with the Emerging Enterprise Center, a nonprofit business incubator, part of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce, located on the Wilmington Riverfront. So today we're talking about imposter syndrome, which is not uncommon for entrepreneurs and high achievers to experience, presenting itself in a form of constantly doubting your talents and abilities, which can really limit your success. So we're very grateful today to have Jennie Lowe from the Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health talk with us and share some of her expert advice on how to help quiet that inner critic. Thank you for joining us, Jennie.
Thanks, Elise. I'm really excited to be here. I think today I will start with a little bit about me and my journey with imposter syndrome. And then I'll move into some ideas about really what it is, and then some actionable strategies to overcome it. And, when I was asked, it was put out there at my company to do this, and hearing you say expert advice, I was thinking, I'm not an expert. And then I thought, yep, that's it. That's imposter syndrome at work. So I was doing some research on this, and I kind of feel like I should introduce myself and say, hi, my name is Jennie, and I'm an imposter, kind of like a 12-step meeting, because that's how pervasive and plaguing this can be, especially for high achievers, people in important positions. I am a mental health therapist at Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health, working with adults and children. Been doing this for about 3.5 years. And I think that I'm a young professional, so it can be even harder. When I first started out, I described to people that I kind of felt like a newborn baby giraffe with shaky legs. Didn't know what I was doing. I'm in a field where oftentimes there's no right answer. There's not a lot of times when people come back and tell you, you said the right thing, and now I'm better. You're in a room by yourself with another person, and that can be really difficult, and there's a lot of room there for self-doubt and negative thoughts. I've had patients tell me, you need to go read a book, that I'm too young, what do I know? And that's just not the button that I wanted to be pushed. Now that I'm a little bit further into my career, still very young, I have people come that I work with that are much older than me. And every now and then those thoughts are there for sure. And I think I've come up with some good ways to work on this, but one of the best things that I've learned was from my supervisor, Lisa Darby. Shout out to Lisa Darby. She told me one of those times when I was in her office crying that you can't be perfect for everyone. And that really stuck with me, and I remind myself about that all the time. And it doesn't just mean in the mental health field as a therapist. Perfectionism is a very easy trap to fall into, and it's helpful to remind ourselves that we don't have to be perfect and please everyone. We need all kinds of people in this world, and I can help some people, I can be there for some people, and then some people are looking for something else. So I think that was my biggest help when it comes to dealing with those imposter syndrome thoughts. But I'll get more into those thoughts later in a little bit. Imposter syndrome, the definition that I found is doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. Oftentimes people report having the thought, if you really knew me, you'd know that I'm not qualified. And that's a big, heavy thought. And this actually, imposter syndrome actually disproportionately affects high achieving people who find it hard to accept their accomplishments. Maybe it's due to the high pressure that comes along with those positions. You're also maybe surrounded by more high achieving people. It could be easy to compare yourself. So usually this affects people who actually are very successful, and the other population that this is very common in is minorities and people of color. You know, we live in a society where there's just not, sometimes there's just not examples that we can see in media or at work that we can feel like, we can see ourselves in. So if we don't see examples of ourselves succeeding in work, in media, in politics, whatever it is, it can be very easy to doubt ourselves. Some people report having thought, well, I only got hired because I'm Black. I only got hired because I'm a woman. They need diversity. They need to meet their numbers, and that's why I'm hired, not because of my intrinsic value. I'm a big Michelle Obama fan, and she talks a lot about imposter syndrome, and for herself, being told, she says that people, minorities of all kinds are often told either, overtly or covertly that you're not good enough. If you're in a room, maybe wondering, how did I get here? And then on top of that, there's a fear, well, will someone discover that I shouldn't be here? And she describes it as, quote, a thing in your head, which I totally agree with. She said that she's been in a lot of important meetings, a lot of important positions. And she says, I want to tell you, there are a lot of people who don't belong there, and it's not you, which I really liked. She made the point that people act like they belong when they've been told that they belong. And minorities, people of color, any kind of minority might have to do that work for themselves. They have not often been told that they belong, whether it's just, what we observe or what they've actually been told from people along the way. Minorities, that's an extra struggle. They have to do more work, kind of do that work for themselves, telling themselves that they belong and counting on themselves to get that self-confidence that maybe would be handed to other people in other ways. There's a term in social psychology called pluralistic ignorance. And that's the idea that I'm alone, that I feel this way, believing that I'm alone, that I feel this way. So no one believes, but everyone thinks that everyone else believes. So maybe, for in the workplace, individually, I feel like I'm not good enough. And I think everyone else, one, thinks they're good enough, and two, believes that they are good enough. So if I believe that other people are good enough and I'm not good enough, well, that doesn't feel good. And then also if I believe that other people believe they are good enough and have that confidence, that doesn't feel good either. So there's a couple layers there. And this can be really isolating. If everybody's off in their cubicles believing that they're not good enough, but everybody else is, and everyone's having this thought, it doesn't, that's pretty isolating. And, there a lot of times is the fear, if I talk about it, if I let people in to that thought, nobody will understand because they're good enough and they believe they're good enough. So sharing and letting people in and being vulnerable would expose me. So then we're not getting the support that we need with these hard self-doubting thoughts. I use cognitive behavioral therapy when I am working, and a big part of cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitions, thoughts. Our thoughts affect how we feel. We don't often get sat down when we're growing up and are told, think about your thoughts. We just have thoughts, we accept them, we react to them. And there's 3 pretty common thoughts that I have found that really can influence imposter syndrome. Just because we have a thought does not mean it's true, does not mean we have to believe it, does not mean we have to react to it. Comparisons are really dangerous. And we often compare ourselves to people that are higher achieving than us, which doesn't feel good. If you're comparing yourself to someone who has met all the goals that you want to meet, but not the person who, is behind you as you perceive them, that doesn't feel good, and we're never going to feel confident in ourselves. So the first part here, I think the most important part, is just noticing when you're having those thoughts. Then we can work on changing them. But the first part is noticing, aha, there I go again. I'm comparing myself to someone else. When in reality, it's not very logical to do that, because another person is another person, has a different background than you, has a whole different life than you. So to compare yourself to someone else, it's like apples and oranges, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't make us feel good. The second one is expectations, and this kind of is similar to comparisons, but it's more that we're comparing ourselves to ourselves. So, it made me think of a documentary I saw, came out in 2009, called A Race to Nowhere. And this is the idea that, we're put on this track when we're growing up. You go to a good schools, you can go to a good high school, you get good grades, you can go to a good college, you go to a good college and get good grades, so you can get a good job, you do well in your jobs, you can get more money. And where are we going with this? Where's the finish line? There is not a finish line. Usually when we meet a goal, we set a new one. And that can leave us feeling never good enough. And it can hurt our self-confidence to never feel like we have made it and we're never good enough. We're always setting higher expectations and then, maybe even falling short. So watching those expectations again is the most important part. Noticing, allowing yourself to notice when you continue to set more goals and never feel satisfied with what you have. And the last kind of cognition here that can get in the way is mind reading. So if you are looking at yourself through a lens of someone else, that can really be detrimental. When I first started, I remember first started working, I wore a fake wedding ring to convince people that I was mature enough to have that position and to say what I was saying. I was so consumed with making myself look older and more mature which really is a product of my imposter syndrome. I was trying to read other people's minds when in reality, what does having a wedding ring on my finger have to do with my qualifications? I truly believed that I was not good enough, so I had to alter myself to be good enough. So that is a perfect example of mind reading. I was trying to mind read what other people were thinking about me. And you know what? It's not something to be ashamed about, because acceptance is a human need, and we're kind of conditioned to look for judgment from other people. We want to do well. We want other people to tell us we're doing well. And what I am kind of fighting for is that we can tell ourselves that we're doing well. We don't have to get that from anyone else. We can do that for ourselves. So a couple ideas here for helping with this. Something that I did when I first started as a therapist in the working world in general. I kept a journal. I have it right here, this little purple journal that I kept, and it has quotes from people who have told me that they appreciate me and that I've helped them, which, like I said in the beginning, does not happen very often. Some other positions, some other fields, maybe you'll get a yearly report, and once a year, maybe someone is telling you that they appreciate you and you're doing well. And sometimes that's just not enough. So celebrating our wins, I think that can be very helpful in kind of challenging those negative thoughts that you might have. Holding on to our wins instead of setting a goal and meeting it and moving on to the next one. Let's celebrate the win more. And maybe that can help us improve our self-confidence and feel that we are doing the right thing and we do deserve to be here, because look at this big list in my journal of things that I've achieved, people that I've helped. I'm a big list maker, and I'm working on that because it's not always helpful. And one idea I would say is, before setting more goals, actually making sure that we are taking those moments again to maybe even look back at old goals. Think about yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and what you wanted for yourself. Have you achieved any of those things? And how cool is that? I remember being maybe in high school thinking, wow, I would love to be a therapist one day. And I am one. And that's pretty cool. And I go to work just, on every day, and it doesn't feel cool that I'm a therapist now, but I can allow myself to have that pride that I did that. It doesn't, and pride doesn't have to equal arrogance either. It can be very important for our self-esteem and really quality of work. If we're feeling better about ourselves, we probably do better work. When I was doing my research here, an idea that popped up was giving the imposter a name. And this can help us kind of get some distance from those thoughts. So if I can give these thoughts a name, it can help us remember that we don't have to be those thoughts. We don't have to react to them. You can say, oh, there's Fred again. He's talking to me again. He's telling me I'm not good enough. He's telling me I shouldn't be here, that I don't know what I'm saying. If you can separate yourself and observe those thoughts, a lot of times I like to think about being in the audience and watching my thoughts on a stage rather than being up there with them acting in the play. I'm in the audience and I'm just watching them. There they go again, doing their dance up on the stage, and I don't have to participate. And two more ideas here: talking to people about insecurities. Not just everyone, because you don't need to share your deep, dark thoughts with everyone, but people who you feel secure with, either in the workplace or outside of the workplace. share those thoughts, break through that isolation, because when you tell other people that you're feeling like an imposter, they're going to say me too. Or at least at some point in their life, they felt that way. It is so common, but we don't talk about it, so it doesn't feel common. The more we talk about it, the better we can feel that we're not alone here and that maybe these thoughts are made up. And my last idea here is from Michelle Obama. She says one of the best things that she has done for her imposter syndrome is being present and occupying the seat, pushing yourself to be there. Even if you feel kind of like fake until you make it, even if you feel that you shouldn't be there, that you're not qualified, be there and push yourself and occupy the seat at the table. And the more you do that, I really like that idea, because the more you do that, the more you're teaching your brain that you are worthy of being there and that you are qualified. So those are some tips that I have for dealing with imposter syndrome. And Elise, I will go ahead and throw it back to you now. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Jennie. I feel like one of the best pieces that you said was just how, again, it's strengthening that muscle. Like today, you stretch yourself, you did something that was a little uncomfortable, and that is strengthening that muscle for helping to reduce that feeling of imposter syndrome. And I also, it was when you were talking earlier about Michelle Obama, how she said that it's sometimes you don't get told that you're told that you belong somewhere, you feel like you belong somewhere. And it goes back to the story that I heard of I just recently heard someone speaking about how there was a successful entrepreneur, but when he was younger, he didn't do well in school. He was not seen as an intelligent person. And then the SAT scores came out and he thought he was going to bomb it, and he ended up getting a very high score. Okay. And that made him feel like he deserved to.
Right.
And he started going to class, started acting like he was acting,
right,
like he belonged there. And through that, he actually became very successful, and then found out years later that score was incorrect. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a 700, not a 1480. And it's amazing how that is the power of the brain. So the believing. So if anyone had any questions for Jennie, feel free to throw them in the comments. We are monitoring the comments if you have any questions. And as you're talking and sharing your vulnerable experience with imposter syndrome, I know I myself have felt that many times in my life. And it just reiterated why it's important that we're taking this opportunity during Mental Health Awareness Month to share strategies for those who are experiencing this, which are limiting your success. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, for those who are joining us now and didn't hear the opening, this is a free series. We're partnering with the Mid-Atlantic Behavior Health in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month to provide tools and strategies for overcoming common struggles entrepreneurs, high achievers, small business owners face. Oh, Bob said, I love the idea of being present in the moment, which I know all of us struggle with.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, our brain can tell us all kinds of crazy stories. If we can be here now, connect to the present moment, it can take us out of that thinking pattern that we're stuck in, and noticing just the reality of what's going on around us, which usually is not as bad as our brains are telling us.
Well, I definitely have a very loud self-critic. So with that, I just want to thank you again, Jennie, for joining us. And then those who are watching, we will be hosting our next chat next Friday at 10 a.m. with Ashley Harris, also from Mid-Atlantic Behavior Health, to discuss the importance of self-care. So we hope that you will join us next Friday at 10 a.m. And thank you so much, Jennie.
Thank you, Elise.
Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.